So, how do you build a great civilization? Is it all about powerful armies and strong governments? Or is it about groundbreaking ideas, in science, art, and philosophy? Today, we're going to dig into how the early Muslim world built a lasting legacy by doing something pretty incredible, combining both, and in the process, answering a question that has puzzled people for centuries.
Right? It's that classic chicken and egg question of history. Do you need a powerful state first to create the security for brilliant minds to do their thing? Or do those brilliant ideas create the wealth and tech that make a state powerful in the first place? Well, as we're about to see, the answer isn't so simple. It's not an either-or situation. It's both. So here's the key idea. It's not a straight line. It's more like an engine, a self-reinforcing, virtuous cycle where political muscle and pure brain power feed each other. Think about it. A strong government creates stability. That stability gives brilliant people the space they need to create and innovate. And then those innovations, well, they make the civilization stronger, richer, and way more influential. This is the engine we're going to be exploring today. All right, so to really get how this engine works, we have to start at the beginning. We've got to look at how it was actually built. And that all starts with the political foundation, the framework that made everything else possible. So after the death of the Prophet Muhammad, leadership fell to the Rashidun caliphs. And their number one job, their most critical task, was to unify a community that was growing incredibly fast. They had to create the systems, the law and order that would set the stage for everything that was about to come. And right here, you see this huge difference in how to rule. On one hand, you had the Umayyads. They kept expanding the empire, for sure, but their policy of favoring Arab Muslims created a lot of friction, a lot of social tension. But then, the Abbasids come along and do a total 180. They move the capital to Baghdad and build this super sophisticated, inclusive bureaucracy. They brought everyone into the government. And that shift, it was an absolute game changer. It calmed things down internally and created a way more stable platform for progress. And boy, did that stability pay off. I mean, big time. With a secure, organized government locked in, the second part of our engine could really roar to life. And that led to an absolute golden age of ideas. Yeah, the new capital, Baghdad, wasn't just about politics. It became the intellectual heartbeat of the entire empire. That peace and order provided by the Abbasid government, it was the perfect soil for scholars, scientists, and thinkers to just flourish. And right at the heart of this explosion of knowledge was the legendary House of Wisdom. Now, don't just picture some dusty old library. This place was a buzzing hub of innovation. You had scholars from all over the world working side by side, translating ancient Greek, Persian, and Indian texts, and then, and this is the important part, building on them with their own incredible discoveries. And the stuff they came up with, absolutely revolutionary. Take math. They developed algebra and formalized that whole step-by-step problem-solving process we now call an algorithm. And this isn't just some historical footnote, by the way. These concepts are literally the foundation of modern computing. Yeah, the smartphone in your pocket, it has roots right here. But the progress didn't stop with math, not even close. You had doctors developing new surgical techniques, compiling these massive medical encyclopedias that were the go-to source for centuries. At the same time, astronomers and physicists were making huge leaps in understanding the stars and the nature of light. The sheer breadth of achievement was just staggering. Okay, so we've seen how political power created the stability for all this intellectual progress. Now let's close that loop. Let's see how all that brain power circled right back around to create new kinds of power. Okay, check out the astrolabe. This thing was a perfect example of putting knowledge into action. It took all that advanced astronomy and math and packed it into what was basically a handheld computer for its time. Sailors and travelers could use it to figure out their exact location just by looking at the stars. This one tool completely changed navigation, which supercharged trade, exploration, and, yeah, the ability to project military power over huge distances. But power isn't just about ships and armies. There's also cultural power, the ability to shape how people see the world. And that's where art and literature really came in. So Islamic art developed this incredibly unique and powerful visual language. Guided by religious beliefs, artists focused on these mind-blowingly complex geometric patterns and beautiful calligraphy. This created a distinct artistic identity that was instantly recognizable across the entire empire. It was like a cultural glue holding this vast, diverse place together. And of course, you had the stories. Collections like the Arabian Nights weren't just entertainment. They were cultural exports. They shared the values, the imagination, and the sheer sophistication of the civilization with the rest of the world, and that enhanced its global influence. But what happens when that engine, that perfect cycle of power and progress, begins to sputter? Well, as we're about to see, that unified political foundation that made it all possible, it eventually started to change, and the consequences were profound. So as we move later in history, that single, centralized opposite caliphate gives way to a much more diverse political landscape. You get these distinct, powerful empires like the Ottomans, the Safavids, and the Mughals. And each one had its own focus, its own priorities, and its own way of governing. And here's the crucial point. With this decentralization, the engine began to slow down. When power is no longer concentrated in one single, stable center like Baghdad, but is instead spread out across competing empires, well, that perfect self-reinforcing cycle of power and progress becomes much, much harder to maintain. A huge turning point comes in 1453, when the Ottoman Empire conquered Constantinople. It didn't just mark the end of the old Byzantine Empire. It symbolized the definitive rise of a new, powerful center in the Muslim world, but one with a very different structure and focus than the Abbasid Caliphate of the Golden Age. So what's the big takeaway from all this? The story of early Islamic civilization shows us that progress isn't an accident. It's the product of a powerful engine, where political stability and intellectual achievement are deeply intertwined, each making the other possible. And honestly, that's a lesson that is just as relevant today as it was 1,000 years ago. And that leaves us with a final thought to chew on. If civilizations are truly built on this engine of power and progress, which part do you think is more fragile? Is it the political stability that can be shattered by conflict? Or is it the intellectual curiosity and drive for new ideas that can just fade over time? It's a question worth thinking about.